Wolfgang's vault is the largest collection of memorabilia, vintage memorabilia, merchandise, concert recordings, and concert video that exists in the world now. And it's not just by a little bit the biggest, it's by a lot the biggest. There isn't any other entity that is available through any other medium that comes anywhere close to the archive that Wolfgang's vault has. We bought the original archive from Bill Graham's company, from actually Clear Channel, who owned it at that point in time. And when we bought the archive, it was stored in really a cellar, and a cellar that had 20-foot high ceilings and was about 5,000 square feet. And it was nearly impossible to tell how big the archive was because it was stacked so high, and it was literally from floor to ceiling. When we actually moved it out into our building, where we are right now, it took 26 40-foot trailer loads to move the entire archive over to where we are today. And it is composed of any number of various and sundry different types of assets. Posters, handbills, tickets. There was apparel in there that we did not even know was there. When we opened boxes that were stored at the very top of the archive, we found a t-shirt collection of vintage rock t-shirts, including what we believe to be some of the first rock t-shirts ever made, that we did not even see on any list before we had commenced the due diligence. And then, of course, there was the video archive, there was a photographic archive, and there was a huge live performance audio archive. Bill Graham is truly a very special and very unique person. He was born in Germany. He lost both of his parents and two of his sisters to concentration camps where they died during the war. He came out through Spain, got to the United States, and picked his name out of a phone book. His actually original name was Wolfgang Grajonka, and he picked his name out of the New York City phone book, worked in New York State, both in the city in odd jobs, and then he worked in the Pocono Mountains as a waiter in one of those old-time Pocono Mountain resorts. And it was at about that time that he decided to go to California, the land of opportunity. And so with a couple quarters and a couple dollars in his pocket, he drove cross country, came to California, got a job with Alice Chalmers as an accountant, and very quickly got into the live performance business. First with the Mime Troupe, which was a group of street performers out here in California that exists to this day. And then promoting live performance concerts at the beloved Fillmore. Bill Graham, and this is why he is so special, is that he took those artists that were really just very young and what we would consider to be independent performers today, independent artists, and he gave them a place to play. And so whether it was Janis Joplin or Jimi Hendrix or the Doors or Grateful Dead or Quicksilver Messenger Service or Jefferson Airplane, these people had no place to play until Bill Graham came along and saw that not only was there great art and great music here, but also there was a business opportunity. Before Bill Graham, there existed a person here and a person there and a venue here and a venue there, but there was no longevity to those venues and no longevity to those promoters. Bill Graham found the best artists, put them on bills with each other, and put together two of the greatest venues in Northern California that have existed anywhere in the world, first the Fillmore and then Winterland. We have recordings that go back to 1967, actually late 1966, excuse me, for audio. And these are right off the old soundboard. They're quarter-inch tape. We were very nervous when we found these quarter-inch tapes because we were concerned that they would have been damaged in the 40-plus years they have been in storage. They were made, these tapes were made by 3M, and they proved to be in excellent condition. and the quality of the audio that we've gotten off those tapes has been superb. But it starts back in 1966. Our archive goes all the way through 2008. The most interesting things is when you listen to Jefferson Airplane and Grace Slick, not only with Jefferson Airplane, but her prior band, Great Society, and Grateful Dead. And we have a phenomenal recording from early 1968 with Aretha Franklin, where the audience is right up next to her, and right in front of Aretha during the entire performance is a legendary rock and roll photographer, Jim Marshall, who seems to be bothering her. He's there for the entire set, actually for both sets that night, and unfortunately Jim Marshall just passed away here recently, but without doubt, in my opinion, the greatest rock and roll photographer of all time. And in this set, she's just about done, and that's when Aretha Franklin played the organ. She played it for most of the performance, and she's about ready to start the encore. She's called back on stage, and she brings Ray Charles back on stage to do the encore. It's an amazing performance, and that doesn't happen anymore. In the old days when Graham was doing it, you would have the Doors, Big Brother and the Holding Company, and Jimi Hendrix on the same bill, and they would each play between 40 and 50 minutes twice a night. That doesn't happen anymore, but that's what Graham did. He built the business of live performance for rock and roll performers when they had no other place to go. We have the greatest rock and roll photographers of all time worked with and for Bill Graham, and whether that is Jim Marshall or Baron Woolman, who is the first photographer at Rolling Stone magazine, or in my opinion, one of the truly greatest photographers of all time, Michael Zagaris, whose photography I love and whose photography I collect, or Josiah, who was mostly on the East Coast, but also did an enormous amount on the West Coast, and was really focused on the East Coast in the jazz festivals, rock and roll festivals, New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut. The poster art is really Graham's creation also. Graham believed that in order to interest people in coming to see these live performances, he needed to have great posters that not only had the bands named on them, but had great art. And so Graham went to the best poster artists he could find at the time, which included people such as Rick Griffin, whom I think is the greatest poster artist of all time, his first wife, Bonnie McLean, Mouse and Kelly and Moscoso and Wes Wilson, the earliest rock poster drawers and artists who truly created an art scene that has been compared by MoMA of New York to what Toulouse-Lautrec did in Montmartre in France. This is amazing art, and Graham would put it on posters. He would do limited runs of these posters, and many of those original posters that were done in the mid to late 60s on through the 70s and 80s, we still have quantities of today. Not large quantities of today, but we still do have quantities of today, and we display those, we license those, and we sell those on our website, wolfgangsvault.com. It began with the Bill Graham Archive, and I would say from 2002 to 2004, the Bill Graham Archive was what we focused on. It literally took us, between a year and a half and 2 years after we acquired the archive to store it, to label it, to enter it into a database, to make sure that we protected it archivally in special temperature-controlled office space, which is where we are today. So it took us quite a while to do that, and then on top of it, build a website in which we could display it to various visitors that would want to come in and get the music, both audio and audio-video, ready. But the art that we had back then is art that is strong today as it was back then, and various exhibitions, whether it's for Rick Griffin, or for Michael Zagaris' art, for photography, or Jim Marshall's photography, or Baron Woolman's photography, or Mouse and Kelly, who were a great team of poster artists, that is still displayed as of today. After 2004, we began to acquire and consolidate other archives. And where we focused our time and energy in this process was on other archives that had great audio and audio-visual recordings. We acquired the King Biscuit Archive, which is a famous archive of live performance music that was on the radio in the 70s and 80s and on into the 90s. And it's a rock and roll archive, a couple thousand different live performance recordings. Silver Eagle Archive, which is a totally live country archive. The Record Plant Archive, which is which was the record plant, which was done at the record plant, and the record plant, which was located in 3 locations, New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, was the studio where many of the greatest albums of all time were recorded. But they also did impromptu live performances, and we have their archive also. And then recently we acquired the Ash Grove Archive, which is from a venue down in Los Angeles, and it's old blues and early country and folk. And then one of the biggest acquisitions we have done is the acquisition of the Newport Folk and Newport Jazz Archive, which is literally 4,000 recordings of audio-only recordings and about 2,000 audio-visual recordings from 1955 right up till 2008. And it is truly amazing. We just brought up on the site, for example, Newport Jazz 1959 with Count Basie and Thelonious Monk and Dakota Staton amongst 27 other performers, and it was remarkable, had great reception, a large number of downloads, and people just enjoyed the dickens out of it. And we bring up jazz every week on the site, but we have thousands more to go. We believe we'll bring up, that we'll be ready to bring up video in a complete fashion on the Wolfgang's Vault site sometime midsummer. And we have probably between 4,000 and 5,000 audiovisual recordings. We have snippets or songs from, maybe 200 or 300 of those individual songs up on the site now, but the yeoman's share of that, the greatest share of that, will not come up till midsummer. And this performance in 1977, Day on the Green, Peter Frampton and Lynyrd Skynyrd, and this was the same time at which Frampton was doing his, up till recently, the largest selling album of all time, Frampton Comes Alive. He did it at about the same time. He is just amazing, and Skynyrd does, as has been said by any number of people, their best live video versions of Freebird and Sweet Home Alabama that they've ever done. They go on forever, but they are fantastic. The crowd is amazing. It's a great day. It is, and I say this with no bias at all, it is one of the greatest live performance videos that I have ever seen. And it was done by a very, very capable and, in my view, excellent videographer, Eric Christensen. We go by the motto, we go by the creed, where live music lives. And whether it is live music in the form of an audio performance, an audio-visual performance, or the backstage passes, posters, and T-shirts that accompany the live performance, it's all of that. And when you bundle that with the photography, the great, remarkable photography that has been done by some of the greatest rock and roll photographers of all time, it is a true experience. And we try and tie all that together with context. It is very important for us not to just to put up a video recording or an audio recording or a piece of art or a backstage pass or a laminate or a photograph. We spend an enormous amount of time talking about what happened that day at that performance to give people context of who was in the band, what they were experiencing, what the crowd was like, let alone what the music is like.